What if the greatest secret of the British monarchy was hidden beneath the heart of the world's most beloved princess? A secret that, if revealed, could have rewritten royal bloodlines and shaken the palace walls forever. In the final months of Princess Diana's life, whispers began to grow, not of scandal, but of something far more human. A quiet tenderness, a possibility, a child. Was Diana carrying a hidden heir, a life she protected from the same institution that once broke hers? Tonight we pull back the royal curtain to uncover a mystery buried under decades of silence. Because if what some believe is true, the line to the throne may never have been what we thought. Before we begin, take a second to hit like if you've ever admired Diana's courage, and subscribe so you never miss another royal truth the palace tried to bury. Share this video with someone who still remembers Diana's smile, because tonight we are not just revisiting her story, we re-uncovering what could have changed history itself. She was no longer Her Royal Highness, but in the eyes of the world she had never shone brighter. It was 1996. Diana had officially divorced Prince Charles, and for the first time in her adult life she could breathe. No palace schedules, no royal protocols, just Diana. But freedom came with a strange kind of loneliness, and for a woman who had lived every heartbreak under a spotlight, even silence could feel loud. Still, there was something different about her now. Gone was the timid young bride the world once pitied. This Diana was stronger, a woman rediscovering herself piece by piece, through compassion, laughter, and a fierce love for her two boys. She spent her mornings visiting hospitals, not for photo ops, but for quiet moments. She held the hands of children with AIDS when others refused to touch them. She walked through minefields in Angola, fearlessly stepping into danger to show the world what courage really looked like. Her causes weren't royal obligations anymore. They were personal, human. Everywhere she went, people didn't just see a princess. They saw a mother, a friend, a fighter. And maybe that's why the world adored her so deeply. Because despite all the diamonds, she was heartbreakingly real. In her private life, though, Diana was still searching. For love, for peace, for someone who saw her, not her title. After years of betrayal and emotional isolation, she craved something genuine, something the monarchy had never offered her: unconditional affection. By mid-1997, whispers began about her newfound closeness with Egyptian film producer Dodi Fayed, the son of billionaire Mohammed Al Fayed, a man despised by Britain's upper circles but adored by Diana for his warmth and humanity. They were two souls from different worlds, she, the people's princess, he, the outsider forever looking in. Together they found what neither had before: simplicity, joy, the kind that doesn't ask for permission. In July 1997, paparazzi captured Diana and Dodi aboard a yacht off the coast of the Mediterranean. She looked radiant, sun-kissed, smiling, utterly at ease. For the first time in years, her laughter wasn't practiced. It was free. But it wasn't just the tabloids that noticed something had changed. Close friends would later recall that Diana seemed softer, calmer, as if she was guarding a secret that made her glow from within. One confidant even claimed, she said she'd found her happiness, and that nothing, not even the palace, could take it away this time. What did she mean? Was it simply love, or something more?
That summer, Diana told reporters she was entering a new chapter, one that would surprise everyone. She even hinted at a life beyond Britain. Her relationship with Dodi was moving fast. The Fayed family had invited her and the boys to the south of France, and even arranged for a new villa in Paris. Behind the scenes, speculation was running wild. Was Dodi planning to propose? Was Diana ready to say yes? Or was there another reason she seemed so protective of her privacy? Rumors began swirling of late-night doctor visits, sudden changes in her diet, and unusual precautions with her schedule. Nothing confirmed, but everything curious. The British press, always hungry, began to sense something bigger than a romance story, something that might threaten the palace itself. You see, the monarchy had always been built on control, over image, over narrative, over bloodline. And Diana, she had become uncontrollable. The idea that the mother of the future King of England might marry, or worse, have a child with, an Egyptian Muslim was unthinkable to the establishment. To some, it wasn't just scandalous. It was dangerous. If that happened, the royal bloodline, the very foundation of centuries of tradition, would be thrown into chaos. What would it mean for William and Harry's place in history? What would it mean for the monarchy's public image? These questions began haunting powerful minds behind closed palace doors. And yet, in those sunlit Mediterranean days, Diana seemed blissfully unaware, or maybe she just didn't care anymore, because after all she had endured, she had finally found something worth protecting at any cost. By August 1997, her friends noticed an emotional shift. Diana spoke often about wanting to start over, to escape the circus, to build a future that was entirely her own. Some even claimed she'd said she was ready to be a mother again. A statement that, in hindsight, feels almost prophetic. Could she have been hinting at something hidden, something that, if true, would have changed everything we know about the British throne? Because if Diana was carrying Dodi's child, then the world's most famous love story wasn't just a tragedy. It was a royal revolution that never got to happen. Pause moment, narration softens. Diana's last summer was filled with sunlight, laughter, and the feeling of freedom she had chased her whole life. But what no one knew then was that every smile, every photo, every wave to the cameras was leading toward a night that would echo through history. A night when a secret, if it existed, would die with her in a Paris tunnel. And the question the world would keep asking for decades: was she carrying more than just a heart that night? London's night air was restless that summer. Rumors fluttered through the tabloids like ghosts, whispers too delicate to print, yet too powerful to ignore. Princess Diana, free, in love, and glowing, was living a life the palace could no longer control. But behind every photograph of her smiling on a yacht, there were phone calls, hushed meetings, and worried glances inside Buckingham Palace. Because something about Diana's new life terrified them, and the whispers only grew louder. Was she pregnant? At first, it was brushed off as tabloid nonsense. After all, the British press had built an empire on Diana rumors. But this time, something was different. One journalist, speaking years later, admitted that certain editors received anonymous tips, not about jewelry or love affairs, but about medical tests conducted discreetly during Diana's trips abroad. And though nothing concrete was ever confirmed, the timing, the secrecy, the sudden shift in her behavior, it all pointed toward a possibility that couldn't be ignored. Even the people closest to her noticed small changes. Her former butler, Paul Burrell, recalled that she seemed unusually protective of her privacy, even from those she trusted. She was hiding something, he said quietly in one interview. And whatever it was, it meant the world to her. Then came the photograph that changed everything. It was taken in early August 1997, just weeks before her death. Diana was standing on Dodi's yacht, barefoot, in a pale blue swimsuit. Her hand rested gently across her stomach, a tender, almost unconscious gesture. The tabloids exploded with speculation. Some dismissed it as coincidence. Others claimed it was proof. One paper even ran the headline, "Is Diana expecting again?" And though the palace publicly ignored it, behind closed doors, royal aides were said to be panicking. Let's pause for a second. Imagine what that would mean. If Diana truly was pregnant, and the father was Dodi Fayed, it wouldn't just be another royal scandal. It would be a constitutional earthquake. A child of Diana and Dodi would have been the half-sibling of the future King of England, a living bridge between the monarchy and a man the royal establishment viewed as an outsider. It's the kind of story no press officer could spin, no palace statement could contain, and perhaps no system of power could allow. Mohammed Al-Fayed, Dodi's father, would later tell investigators that Diana had personally confided in him about the pregnancy, and that she and Dodi planned to announce their engagement soon. He even claimed to have seen receipts for a ring, a diamond engagement ring, purchased just days before the crash. The Paris jeweler confirmed that Dodi had indeed bought one. The receipt was real. The box was real. But the engagement? That's where the story becomes shadowed in mystery. Because before anything could be announced, before the world could see the next chapter unfold, tragedy struck in a Paris tunnel. And with it, any answers were buried forever. Still, not everyone believes it was coincidence. When investigators examined Diana's medical records after her death, They found that the standard autopsy, one that might have revealed a pregnancy, had not been conducted in full accordance with British law. There were missing reports, conflicting witness statements, and sealed files that remained untouched for years. Why? Was it bureaucracy or a cover-up? Even former MI6 agents later suggested that there had been intense interest in Diana's personal life from intelligence circles, especially as she had started speaking publicly about issues the monarchy found uncomfortable. And one of those topics, her plans to live abroad, possibly in France or even the Middle East. If she had done that, with a child on the way, the monarchy's hold on the narrative of her life would have shattered completely. Friends of Diana said she often spoke about wanting a fresh start. In one recorded conversation, she mentioned the idea of moving somewhere peaceful, where I can raise my boys without interference. She also told one close friend, "They'll never let me be truly happy unless I disappear." Was that a metaphor for her emotional exhaustion or a chilling premonition? Because as the whispers grew louder, so did the sense of surveillance around her. Her calls were intercepted. Her movements followed. And on the night of August 30th, 1997, the same day she called her sons to say she missed them, those invisible eyes were still watching. It's haunting to think about, isn't it? A woman who had been hunted by cameras her whole life, now being followed by forces she couldn't see. In Paris, she was supposed to be safe, surrounded by people who adored her, but within hours, that sense of safety would vanish. And by dawn, the world would awaken to headlines that didn't just break hearts, they broke trust. Because even now, decades later, too many questions still hang in the air. Was her death truly an accident, or was it the silencing of a truth that could have changed the royal bloodline forever? Whatever the truth, one thing remained certain. Diana was not a woman who lived in fear. She had faced the might of the monarchy and survived. She had endured betrayal, humiliation, and heartbreak, yet walked out stronger, brighter, more human. And that's what makes this story so haunting. Because just when she found the happiness she always deserved, the world lost her forever. Paris, August 31st, 1997. It's a night burned into history and into the world's collective heartbreak. Just hours before the crash, Diana was in a suite at the Ritz Hotel, laughing, relaxed, and reportedly planning her next steps with Dodi. Some say she was radiant that evening, almost serene, as if she had finally made peace with the chaos that had followed her for years. But peace was an illusion, because outside, the cameras were already waiting, a sea of flashbulbs and engines, hungry for one more photograph of the woman they could never leave alone. Around midnight, Diana and Dodi decided to leave for Dodi's Paris apartment on Rue Arsène-Housset. The plan was to slip away quietly, avoiding the photographers. Their driver that night, Henri Paul, was the acting head of security at the Ritz. He was trusted, loyal, or so they thought. They left through the back exit, a decoy car sent out the front to distract the paparazzi. But within minutes, the chase began anyway. Flashes exploded against the windows. Motorbikes surrounded the Mercedes. Witnesses remember the sound, the roar of engines, the scream of tires, the echo of pursuit through the Paris night. At 12:23 a.m., in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, everything went silent. The car hit the 13th pillar. And in that single heartbeat, the world changed forever. For most, the tragedy ended there, a cruel twist of fate, an accident caused by reckless speed and relentless paparazzi. But for others, especially those who knew Diana's growing sense of fear in her final weeks, it never felt that simple. Because in her own words, Diana had once written, "My husband is planning an accident in my car, brake failure and serious head injury, to make the path clear for him to marry." That letter, found after her death, sent chills through the public and raised a haunting question. Had Diana predicted her own end? The official investigations, British, French, even independent, all ruled it an accident, but cracks soon appeared in that conclusion. Blood tests on Henri Paul showed high levels of alcohol, yet witnesses at the hotel said he appeared perfectly sober minutes before departure. CCTV footage seemed to show time gaps, missing frames, unaccounted minutes. And then there was the biggest mystery of all, the missing white Fiat Uno seen speeding from the tunnel, never identified, never found. Coincidence? Or something darker? But perhaps the most controversial question of all, the one that still divides royal historians, came when the medical reports were sealed. Several key findings from Diana's autopsy were never publicly released. French pathologists insisted she was not pregnant, but some witnesses claimed otherwise. According to former intelligence insiders, there were irregularities in the handling of her body. One French doctor later told a reporter that early observations could not rule out pregnancy, a detail later dismissed under pressure. Even the embalming of Diana's body, done unusually quickly, raised eyebrows. Why the rush? Why seal away the one test that could have confirmed or denied the rumor once and for all? Let's pause here. Imagine being part of the royal institution that had spent decades guarding its image with iron precision. And now, the mother of a future king might have been carrying the child of an Egyptian Muslim. If that were true, the very idea of monarchy would have trembled. Was it paranoia? Or motive? Even Mohammed Al-Fayed was convinced. He told the world that his son and Diana were engaged, that she was pregnant, and that their deaths were not random, but orchestrated. Most dismissed him as a grieving father, but others quietly wondered if he was right. Years later, an inquest known as Operation Paget revisited every clue. The conclusion? No evidence of conspiracy. But even their own findings couldn't silence public doubt, because when facts feel too neat, too clean, people don't stop asking questions, especially when it comes to Diana. Why did so many cameras fail that night? Why did emergency services take over an hour to bring her to the hospital in a city where every second mattered? And why, after all this time, do so many details remain sealed, classified, or conveniently forgotten? The truth, whatever it is, died in that tunnel. And maybe that's what makes a story so powerful and so painful. Because Diana's death wasn't just the loss of a princess. It was the silencing of a woman who had finally found her voice. She had begun to speak out against the cruelty of the institution, against landmines, against injustice. She was more global than royal, more human than anyone behind the palace gates had ever been. And perhaps that made her too dangerous to exist. In the hours following her death, the palace remained silent. The flag didn't lower. The queen didn't speak. The nation waited, in grief, in shock, in disbelief. When she finally addressed the people, it was as if Britain itself had cracked open, and for once even the crown bowed its head. But amid the mourning, one truth still lingered, soft, persistent, and haunting. If Diana was carrying a secret, a child, a life that could have changed the very nature of the royal bloodline, then that life ended before it began, and the monarchy was saved by tragedy. The world lit candles that night. Millions cried for a woman they had never met, yet felt they had known forever. And somewhere, perhaps, beneath the weight of crowns and secrets, a quiet sigh of relief echoed through palace halls. Because history would never know the child that might have changed it all. The years that followed Diana's death felt like a long, collective silence, a silence filled with questions no one dared to ask out loud. And yet, one question refused to fade. What if she truly had been carrying a child that night? Because if that were true, if the people's princess had been pregnant, the story of Britain itself might have been rewritten. Not just a monarchy, not just a lineage, but the meaning of what it truly meant to be royal. Let's imagine it, not as a theory, but as a human story. A mother of two, finally free from the chains of duty. A woman who had survived humiliation, heartbreak, and public crucifixion, now glowing with hope again. A child born from love, not obligation. That child would have been a symbol, not of titles or crowns, but of unity. A bridge between worlds, between faiths, between East and West. The child of Princess Diana and Dodi Fayed would have carried both the blood of Britain's oldest monarchy and the heritage of one of Egypt's most prominent families. That alone could have softened centuries of division. That alone could have made the monarchy truly global. And maybe that's exactly what made it too dangerous to exist. Still, the whispers never died. Years after her passing, people came forward, staff, friends, insiders, each offering fragments of a truth too fragile to prove. One claimed to have seen Diana's ultrasound appointment card. Another swore she had told them, "You'll understand everything soon." Even now, more than 2 decades later, journalists occasionally reopen the file, searching for anything the public might have missed. And though the official record remains firm, that she was not pregnant, the inconsistencies, the missing evidence, the sealed documents, they leave enough cracks for doubt to slip through. Because when it comes to Diana, facts and faith blur in the same light. But maybe the real story isn't about a hidden heir at all. Maybe it's about something bigger, something that still lives on in her sons. Because when you look at Prince William and Prince Harry today, their compassion, their honesty, their insistence on breaking royal norms, you can see a spirit in every word they speak. Diana's real legacy wasn't just a charity or her beauty. It was her humanity. She made the monarchy human. And that's something no crown can undo. Still, the question lingers like a ghost at the edge of every royal documentary, every palace biography, every whisper in the press. What if? What if Diana had lived? What if a secret had been revealed? What if the royal bloodline we know today had another branch, another heir, hidden not by scandal, but by love? It's a question history may never answer, because some stories, no matter how powerful, are buried deeper than any archive can reach. But the emotion behind them, the hope, the love, the defiance, still moves millions. Every year, flowers still pile up outside Kensington Palace. Every August, strangers weep at candlelight vigils for a woman they never met. And maybe, in some way, that is the hidden heir, not a child, but an idea born from Diana's courage, her compassion, her refusal to conform. The world she dreamed of, kinder, freer, more human, didn't die in that tunnel. It lived on in the hearts of those who still believe love should triumph over power. And in that sense, Diana didn't just leave behind 2 sons. She left behind a generation that learned to care. Diana's story will always be part mystery, part miracle. A fairy tale rewritten by reality. A tragedy wrapped in love. Maybe we'll never know the full truth about her final secret. Maybe some truths were never meant to surface. But if she was carrying a child that night, then somewhere beyond history, beyond rumor and record, there was a heartbeat that could have changed everything. A heartbeat that belonged not just to a royal heir, but to a legacy of love that no crown could silence. So, what do you believe? Was Diana really hiding one final secret? A child that could have rewritten royal history? Or was it all just rumor, magnified by grief and mystery? Tell us what your heart says in the comments below, because this story belongs to everyone who still feels the loss of a woman who gave the world her truth. If you felt something tonight, tap that like button, not for the drama, but for the memory of a mother who dared to be human in a world of crowns. Subscribe for more stories the palace tried to bury. And share this video with someone who still remembers that smile, the smile that changed hearts, and maybe history. Because in the end, Diana's light never truly went out. It just moved somewhere the cameras can't reach.